afternoon. We have some breaking news for you guys. President Biden has stepped down for the running of 2024 election, and he support and endorse Kamala for the presidential race. So Vice Biden dropped out of the race. Now it's Kamala will be running for president. You guys around the world, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a breaking news about President Biden. He signed his endorsement to drop out of the race. Please tune in, listen in, and see if this is any information you guys are interested in. Which would be difficult for anyone. Yes, she has the Biden campaign war chest. Yes, she has the Biden campaign operation. But, she has 3.5 months at the top of this ticket to convince the American people that she is the best person for the job. And that is just something that is very difficult to do. She has to sort of spring in there on day one. She does not necessarily have anywhere near the same size of a team within the White House that the president does. And she's got to try to get all around the country and make her presence known and convince the American people that she has what it takes to do the job. A couple of weeks ago at his press conference, I asked President Biden whether he thought Kamala Harris was ready on day one. Hi guys, welcome, welcome. Breaking news about Kamala and Biden. Biden dropped out of the race. As a prosecutor, something that she definitely brought to bear in her years in the Senate, on the Senate Judiciary Committee. But now she has to take those attributes and the campaign has to take those attributes and sort of refocus the entire message, not just the message of the campaign, but also the message of the convention coming up in just a few weeks. Everything has to change to reorient against someone who, while she has served here in the White House with President Biden for the past 4 years, is a very different person with very different strengths, and that entire campaign machine has to reorient around her. CBS News is doing a lot of reporting, and I want to make sure to get to all of the new information that is just coming in. Robert Costa, I know you have something that you want to share with us.
Yes, so sources close to several of the people who might be considered possible challengers to Vice President Harris for the nomination, people close to California Governor Gavin Newsom, people close to Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, all saying they're preparing. Welcome, guys, welcome. We have a surprising news. Our President Joe Biden has dropped out of the race. You see behind the scenes Democratic consolidation. The real race will be for vice presidential nomination on the Democratic side. But it is intriguing to me as a reporter, but there's no one at this moment preparing behind the scenes to challenge Vice President Harris.
That's right, Governor Gretchen Whitmer just saying with Biden out, my job in this election will remain the same, doing everything I can to help elect Democrats and stop Donald Trump. She wrote that on social media, so she will not get in the way of Kamala Harris seeking this Democratic Party nomination.
And my sources agree with yours in terms of not seeing a head-to-head challenger, but the question then becomes who is the person who stands beside her August 19th at that Democratic convention to seek the nomination in that vice president role. That's where the focus is. Anyone, I was told, looking to challenge her would be committing a political suicide to try to go head-to-head after Joe Biden had been so key in making it very clear, just within minutes of announcing he was not going to seek re-election, that he was endorsing her. This is what we're looking at now.
In a moment, let's talk about who those potential vice presidential picks will be. But first, I do want to touch base with Willie J's Industries in Delaware. And I know, Willie, you have some reaction from the Biden family. Willie?
Hey, Underwood, good to be with you. Well, the Biden family is reacting to this seismic news today. Jill Biden, she reposted the president's statement and she put a heart emoji, so sending her love to her husband. We know that the First Lady has been with the president as he's recovering from COVID-19. here in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. We also are seeing some reaction from the president's granddaughter, Naomi Biden, who said, quote, "I'm nothing but proud today of my pop," referring to her nickname, of course, for the president there. And I want to bring up some reaction as well from Frank Biden, the president's younger brother, who tells ABC News that his brother's decision to step down out of the race boils down to his overall health and vitality, but also beating this genuine threat to our nation in the form of Donald Trump. So some reactions there from the Biden family, of course, who have been close with the president and coming to this decision that we're seeing today, Nora.
Well, James Inman, thank you. It is now the top of the hour, 3 o'clock here on the East Coast, and we are coming on the air with this breaking news. The historic decision by President Joe Biden announcing that he will not seek re-election, that he is dropping out of the presidential campaign, and that he is throwing his support behind his Vice President, Kamala Harris. The president in a statement saying we have made great progress as a nation and that it has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. The president also indicating that he will speak to the nation later this week and have more detail about his decision. Let's go now to our chief White House correspondent, Nancy Cordes, at the White House with new details. Nancy?
Nora, you just read from that letter that the president sent and that went out publicly at 1:45 this afternoon. Well, I've just learned from a top White House official that senior campaign and White House officials were informed of his decision right before that letter went out. He said he'd been reflecting on it for the past couple of days and that this information was closely held. We still don't have much timing on when the president plans to make an address to the public. Keep in mind, he's still got COVID. He is isolating at his home in Rehoboth, but I'm told it should be sometime later this week.
Guys, sorry about that. But welcome to my live. Breaking news about President Biden. He's resigning, dropping out of the race for the next general election. And Kamala Harris will be the person they're trying to decide at.
Continue to be a vigorous campaigner pushing for the Biden-Harris ticket. And I anticipate that she is going to continue to not want to get out ahead of the president. She has to now launch into a lightning sprint between now and election day, and yet with the president holed up with COVID, she's going to want to be very careful until he's had his opportunity to get out there and explain in a more fulsome way to the American people why he has decided to step aside and why he has decided to throw the weight of his support behind Kamala Harris.
Nancy Cordes at the White House, thank you for that perspective and new reporting. Robert Costa is here. Robert?
I've been texting and speaking with members of the inner circle of Vice President Harris. She is now perhaps the most important political figure in the United States. The assumed Democratic nominee, the first female to serve as the Democratic presidential nominee since Secretary Hillary Clinton in 2016. Her team and her closest friends are telling CBS News this afternoon that she is prepared to be the nominee to take on former President Trump at a debate, that they believe she is a strong debater, that she proved her chops when she was on the Senate Judiciary Committee, ruling nominees for the Supreme Court, and that she was a prosecutor in California going back to her days in San Francisco. Her inner circle said she has been careful in recent days, but she has also been thinking ahead to the possibility as these calls and discussions have picked up speed. She expects former President Obama, President Biden in particular, to be out on the campaign trail for her. And there's also a belief right now inside Vice President Harris's inner circle that they could put former President Trump on the ropes, that he has so far in the past few days attacked her on personal characteristics, attacked her laugh at his latest campaign rally, called her Laughing Kamala Harris. And they believe those kind of attacks, which are personal, will not stick with the kind of swing voters that are ultimately perhaps going to decide this election in the key battleground states.
Robert Costa, thank you. Also with us, checking in with many of his sources, Ed O'Keefe. And Ed, what can you tell us at this hour?
Nora, good to be with you. There is a meeting underway of the Democratic National Committee senior leadership amid the unexpected news, at least unexpected to many of them. There was a meeting going on this afternoon that was designed to sort of put the finishing touches on the convention planning, which is 4 weeks from tomorrow, but they did not get enough heads up, and in this meeting weren't able to at least address this, but we know that the DNC Chairman Jamie Harrison convened his top brass very quickly. And in that other meeting, when the word came, said he was...
Welcome, guys, to my live. For those of you around the world, breaking news in America. Joe Biden dropped out of the race, and Kamala Harris is the person they're thinking of to run for the general election, the Democrat Party. If you guys are interested in politics, this is breaking news, breaking news. Welcome, welcome.
The president has endorsed the vice president, to Bob's point earlier, that many may be standing down. Given that announcement, there's a few reasons for that. One, you only got 4 weeks left, and that's a gargantuan task to try to take on.
Please like and share if you guys want to share it to your family or friends. If they're interested in politics, this would be the perfect time for you to share so you can be abreast of American politics. I know a lot of people like to listen to American politics. This is breaking news, very interesting.
There are a handful of governors who I learned this afternoon have been contacted. The one I know for certain, or at least in the reportable way, is the New Jersey Governor, Phil Murphy, who was among those fielding inquiries and entertaining them, in part reminding people that he has a foreign policy background, given that he was once ambassador to Germany. Others that will be considered include the governors of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, potentially Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, and Governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, is the kind of guy that if he really wanted to, could cut himself a $200 million check and mount a challenge himself. But the early word from his staff is they didn't know either. We do now know also, Nora, real quick, that he did inform at least a handful of people before this letter went out over social media. There was one senior party official who said he got a call from someone close to the president, made clear he was going to do this and intended to nominate or to endorse the vice president. So there was some early heads up given to a small handful of senior party leadership responsible for the order of things, raising money, operations, and whatnot. We know over at the White House, however, that many staffers learned about this the way the rest of the world did, over social media, Nora.
And let me ask you about this, Ed, and I think we could all sort of discuss this. It's my understanding, though, that the rules at the convention, President Biden cannot simply transfer the nomination to his running mate. He drops out of the race. There are some almost 4,000 Democratic delegates now that were selected, that were bound to President Biden, that they are now essentially free agents. Now, Biden-Harris is the name of the campaign. She will get the tens and millions of dollars that have been donated to the campaign. But is there a threat to her getting the nomination?
So what is the situation now is, people have run for delegate across the country. And if they ran as Biden delegates, they're now what is called pledged delegates ahead of the convention in Chicago. It's important to note that if you are a pledged delegate, you are elected in our system, but it is by no means legally binding. So to your point, yes, legally speaking, is there an opening for someone to come in on a first ballot vote that is somewhat fluid and say, I want the pledged delegates to walk away from their pledge? Yes, it's very possible. And someone could mount a candidacy saying, I want people on the first ballot to discard their pledge. But this is a political process where these delegates are under enormous pressure to follow through in the fate of the Biden campaign, politically speaking. And if President Biden is now directing his delegates, essentially, to go with Vice President Harris, they could move in a different direction. But there's no one now making a move against Vice President Harris, and it would take a real insider who could pull and yank pledged delegates away from President Biden's decision. And remember, these people who run for delegates are the most loyal Democrats to Biden in the country. So to your point, it is possible someone could challenge her, but not likely.
And you have called this political suicide, rather based on what people have said to you. Who would challenge what could be the first black woman and Asian American to become president of the United States? What would that mean for the disunity that already exists in the Democratic Party? Is there a collective thought that they must now unite as a party in order to defeat Donald Trump.
There is a desire to take this public embarrassment that has been the past 3 weeks of disarray and dispute in the party, and in the next 3 weeks be able to clean it up so that at the convention they can shift the conversation to unity and to messaging. They just saw a very well-orchestrated Republican National Convention and a message of Republican unity there after during the primary where the Republicans were not united. So the emphasis here from those I've spoken to so far is at least there is the intention to try to make this about issues, to try to make this about next generation, about fresh blood, about understanding, and that there's a lot of focus on who that vice presidential selection would be to join Kamala Harris on this ticket. Bob made a great point earlier in terms of that backbone of the Democratic Party, black women. And that is about really leaning into the strength there, not wanting to in any way undercut the vice president, but they know they have a problem with the working class, the white working class male vote. There's going to be a real focus on trying to bring that in. When we talk about some of these names that are being floated, whether it's the Kentucky governor, Amy Beshear, or the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, those are states where there is this emphasis on can they speak to that vote. You see their possible vice presidential.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel. For you guys in other countries, this is American politics. If you guys are interested in politics, it's a good time to listen in to find out what their decisions will be. President Biden has dropped out of the race. So now it's Kamala up for grab for the Democratic Party, and she'll be running against Donald Trump. So welcome, tune in, like, subscribe, and share to your families and friends across the globe if they're interested in American politics. Thank you for watching. And for all the Caribbean people out there, like my country, Jamaica, for you guys, I know you guys love politics in America. Please tune in, listen to the latest news. President Biden has dropped out of the race.
1968, when President Johnson pushed Hubert Humphrey towards the nomination. Presidents are using their political capital in these moments.
And what will quickly follow in a sign of Kamala Harris's strength is if the Obamas come forward and say that she is the best person to move the Democratic Party forward. What will the Clintons do next? That would be a way that could quickly send a signal to the Democratic Party that they want her to be the nominee.
Obama's allies tell CBS News there's no doubt he is going to be supported. Think about this. Vice President Harris got to know then Senate candidate Obama when he was a state senator running for the U.S. Senator in 2004. He would come to California for fundraisers and got to know this rising star in San Francisco in Kamala Harris. They became so close that when he ran for the presidency as a California...
Ladies, please tune in. Kamala Harrison, the first black woman president as candidate. Your thoughts. Welcome, welcome.
Where unity was really sublimating to Donald Trump. There is a part of the party that wants to see this look open, transparent, and have...
Senator Bernie Sanders will be watching this, but he has not issued a statement yet, at least to CBS News. Senator Bernie Sanders and that progressive wing have not always had a perfect relationship politically with Vice President Harris. Watch what Senator Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York do. If the progressives fall in line, it's all hers politically, based on our reporting.
I want to bring in Ashley Etienne. She's the former communications director for Vice President Kamala Harris and is now a CBS News political contributor. Ashley, so good to have you on this historic day. What can you tell us about what is happening behind the scenes where the Vice President is at this hour?
Absolutely, Nora. It is an incredible day in American history. I just remember, Margaret's on with you. We were on Face Nation maybe 2 years ago. The question was whether or not she was going to be on the ticket with Joe Biden, and now she's at the top of the ticket. So much has changed in such a short period of time. It's incredible, but there's a level of excitement within the party and definitely within her own office. So now the question is, what are the plans going forward? How do we piece this together now going forward in a way that sort of stops the bleeding on these key key stakeholders that the party's focused on. One, she's already started to call with fundraisers, so that's headed down the path. There's now plans for leadership on the Hill to get on the tomorrow. Does she go to the Hill? Does the president pass the torch officially, physically, in a way that shows that he's fully endorsing her? These are all the questions now that are trying to figure out behind the scenes. Does he do it in a formal way at a podium, pass the torch to her? Does she deliver big remarks? The other outstanding question is this: is he going to continue? Is he going to effort to secure those pledged delegates that you guys were just mentioning? Is he going to get on the phone, and is his team going to get on the phone with those folks and say, listen, we've got a plan, we've decided as a party, we need to be unified, our unity is our strength, we need to get behind Kamala Harris and move forward and focus our attention on Donald Trump. So what's happening behind the scenes is hyper-focus on how to what are the next steps, and then how do we stop the bleeding among those key stakeholder groups.
Ashley Etienne, thank you. And just moments after I said we're waiting to hear from the Clintons and the Obamas, the statement from President Clinton and Secretary Clinton released, noting that they endorse Vice President Harris and will do whatever we can to support her. The Clintons going on to say in this joint statement, we've lived through many ups and downs, but nothing has made us more worried for our country than the threat posed by a second Trump term. He has promised to be a dictator on day one, say the Clintons, and the recent ruling by his servile Supreme Court will only embolden him to further shred the Constitution. Now is the time to support Kamala Harris and fight with everything we've got to elect her. And then they end with this, the Clintons saying America's future depends on it. Pretty strong statement from the Clintons throwing their support behind Kamala Harris, noting what many people agree is a historic presidential election, perhaps the most important.
Guys, welcome again. Welcome to our live. Biden has dropped out of the presidential race and they are making decisions. Will it be Kamala or someone else?
A unified Republican convention, which we all just came back from, and his choice of this younger.
So Biden endorsed Kamala Harris to be the president of the United States if they should win the general election.
The white working class vote. However, there is already an effort underway, of course, to go back and look at J.D. Vance's record. The way he talked about the white working class in hillbilly elegy wasn't always complimentary. And so there certainly will be a discussion about that coming forward. And I think the Democratic Party and sources that I have spoken with, the reason that they pushed President Biden so hard is that they believe he was not vigorous enough in his pointing out and debating the record and the rhetoric being put forward by Donald Trump.
That's true, but also at this moment, there's a lot of anger among some of President Biden's closest friends. I can't emphasize enough how they feel he was pushed, and that while Democrats might on the surface be celebrating Vice President Harris's likely nomination in the coming days, there is a lot of fury among those closest to President Biden that he was forced to make this decision under pressure from allies of former President Obama, from allies of former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, from major Democratic donors. So expect in the coming days for Democrats to lock arms. We will see a cascade of statements in the next few minutes and hours of every major Democrat likely coming out and offering support for Vice President Harris, unless they're thinking about challenging her for the nomination, which we've reported is very unlikely at this hour. At the same time, watch what President Biden does in the coming days. He will be forceful, I'm told, by people at the White House to be out there on the campaign trail for her, and they don't blame her inside of the Biden inner circle for what has happened. But this is a Democratic Party that's at a fragile political moment. They do not feel that this was played in the perfect way for an 81-year-old president who has battled through so much. And so everyone's watching exactly how statements are made and how people use their time, their money, and their political capital.
Thank you. I want to point out that we are just hearing now from Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker Emeritus, in a statement saying President Joe Biden is a patriotic American who has always put our country first. In her words, his legacy of vision, values, and leadership make him one of the most consequential presidents in American history. She has not endorsed Kamala Harris in this statement, but notably praising the legacy of Joe Biden and applauding his decision to put our country first. We are now joined by the co-chair of the Biden-Harris campaign, Senator Chris Coons. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Great to be on with you. This is a critical moment in American history, and I hope today that we can focus on Joe Biden's incredible legacy of service to our nation. 50 years. He has been serving us in the Senate as vice president, as president, and today he's made a very difficult decision in the best interest of our nation to continue serving as president, to continue rolling up his sleeves and tackling the challenges that still lie ahead of us in the next 6 months, but to step aside in terms of the nomination of my party for president in order to make certain that Donald Trump is not returned to the White House. I admire, I respect, I love Joe Biden. I have worked my heart out for him on this campaign. And while this was a very hard decision, I deeply respect how it is a continuation of his lifetime of putting our country before himself. Joe Biden is the toughest fighter I've ever met. Every time he's been knocked down, he's always got up again. And the challenge of seeing this moment and of recognizing what was in the best interest of the nation was a significant challenge. I still believe he could have beaten Donald Trump, but I also know that what he's done today is in the best interest of our nation.
And Senator, what now is happening with Vice President Harris? When will we hear next from her?
I don't know her schedule today or when she'll come on TV, but what matters is that President Biden has made an historic, a brave and important decision that we should reflect on his legacy and his leadership, which is the legacy of the Biden-Harris administration. As you know, I'm a member of the Judiciary Committee. We've confirmed more than 200 federal judges under the Biden-Harris administration. Vice President Harris, who served with me in the Senate on the Judiciary Committee, was a critical part of getting every one of those judges confirmed. She's been a key part of the successes at home and abroad of the Biden-Harris legacy, and I think she is best positioned to carry it forward. Joe Biden, our president, spoke to that just moments ago in endorsing her. I do hope that we'll take some time today and reflect on the fact that Joe Biden is someone who in the Senate, as vice president, as president, has earned a legacy among the most important, impactful, effective presidents in our entire nation's history, and there's lots more to do. Just this coming week, he will continue to work to negotiate a ceasefire in Gaza, a hostage release and return, a path forward for the resolution of the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. Welcome to the channel. If you guys are into politics, we have breaking news. Joe Biden has dropped out of the presidential race and he turned the baton over to Kamala Harris. So you guys tune in, share to your families and friends who are interested in politics. Very interested, very entertaining. I find it to be.
In a joint statement saying they would like Kamala Harris to be the Democratic nominee. Do you expect there to be any challenge to the vice president?
Well, today I think we should focus on the legacy of Joe Biden as president. I do recognize the urgency of the moment. As we head towards our convention in Chicago in August, I think the most important thing we can do is come together. And Vice President Harris has an incredible legacy of success and accomplishment as a senator and vice president. I do not expect a serious challenge to her nomination, but let's let that work itself out in the coming weeks and focus today on what a big contribution to our nation our president has made. He's been my mentor, he's been my friend. I am proud of him as a Delawarean, a Democrat, and an American. And I hope the folks who have been raising lots of questions and issues in the last few weeks will do what they said they would do and recognize his leadership, his legacy, and come together to support the nominee of the Democratic Party so that we come out of Chicago united. Donald Trump is a unique threat to the future of our nation, and his choice of a running mate is someone who I've served with in the Senate and who I think in terms of our continuing to stand strong behind Ukraine in their fight for freedom, to continue to advocate for the rights and liberties of Americans, shows everything we need to know. We should be focusing on the fall campaign and the threat that Donald Trump presents to the real legacy of accomplishment, fighting for the middle class, reducing prescription drug prices, combating climate change, helping veterans. Our president and vice president have gotten incredible things done. They've gotten them done through bipartisanship too. They've reached across the aisle. They've crafted incredible legislation that's made a difference in everything from gun safety to combating climate change to investing in manufacturing to rebuilding this country. So for everyone who's watching, anxious, concerned about the future of our country, know that Joe Biden is a patriot who loves our nation, and know that we are positioned to carry that legacy forward this fall.
Senator Coons, it's Bob Costa. Good to see you, sir. If you could for a moment, good to see you, respectfully put aside your role as a United States Senator and talk about Joe Biden, the President of the United States. You, more than anyone perhaps I've ever covered, understand his home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. This is a retreat he goes to. The final days of this decision was not like Nixon in '74 at the residence of the White House. He went to Rehoboth Beach, your home state, to be with Jill, to talk with family members. Tell us about the importance of the site of this momentous decision in American political history. Him watching the waves at Rehoboth Beach down the street from the boardwalk and the ice cream stands, a place that he has gone to again and again, decade after personal highs, political humiliation. He always goes back to Rehoboth, back to Delaware, back to the family. I know this was a heart-wrenching decision for him, based on our reporting, but you're one of his closest friends in American politics. Give us a candid assessment of what this has really been like for him.
Bob, as you say, Joe Biden is grounded. He's grounded in his faith, in his family, and in our state. Excuse me. I'm sorry. This was a very difficult decision, and one that I think reflects the very best of who Joe Biden is. Someone who, as you put it, Bob, comes home because it's where his strength is. His strength is in his family. His strength is in our community. His strength is in his faith. And as he was going through the excruciating loss of his beloved son, Bo, it was in Rehoboth, in Wilmington, in prayer, and surrounded by all who have loved and supported him for decades in Delaware, that he found strength. As he was finding his way through the tragic loss of his wife and daughter back in 1972, that began his career in the Senate, it was in Delaware, and it was in his faith that he found the grounding and the strength to be able to get back up and continue. And in every chapter in his life, in politics, in service, in his family, and at home, he's been grounded. Joe Biden, more than anyone I've ever known, speaks to what is best in the American spirit, a capacity to keep going, to see challenges, but to find hope and to find strength. The folks in Delaware who've been texting me and calling me in the last few hours all want me to say to Joe Biden how much we love him, how much we admire and respect his service, and how grateful we all are for the decisions he's made over decades in his service and his tireless loyalty to our home state of Delaware. He is the greatest Delawarean in our history, and the fact that he has chosen to be grounded in our community, in our parish, in our parishes, in the traditions and history of bipartisanship and of respecting each other and of being compassionate and decent. All of that comes from our community, his family, his faith, and our traditions. And so thank you for asking. He did make the hardest decision, I suspect, of his whole life in a way that was informed by and grounded by everything that has sustained him in his decades of public service.
Senator Coons, it's Margaret Brennan, and I appreciate your emotion talking about your friend and doing so in a way that...
Hi guys, welcome to TKS here Salon. Welcome to my channel. Breaking news, as you guys have been listening, Joe Biden dropped out of the race. So we're looking for Kamala. They are looking to vote in Kamala Harrison as the President of the United States. First black woman will be running for the presidential race in America.
Had lost the faith of some of the Democratic leadership. Was it numbers in Congress and losing races, or was it ultimately something within him that said, this is not my moment? Do you have any insight into what changed overnight?
Look, Margaret, I shouldn't get into details where I'd be speaking for our president. But I will say that he is someone who has always fought hard. He is tough. He is a fighter. He has survived blows that would have leveled any lesser man. And so in the last 2 weeks, he has struggled with that instinct, that toughness, that determination to keep fighting and to keep showing what America is all about. If you read his letter that he put out today, he said he's more optimistic today than he's ever been about our nation. That together, if we unite, there's nothing we cannot do. And I think that was a tough balance there. He listened. He heard input from average folks, from folks who loved and supported him for decades, from folks, of course, in the political spectrum all across our country. He dedicated a lot of time to listening to senators, to mayors, to House members, to governors, to advisors, to friends. But at the end of the day, I think what really mattered more than anything else was his confidence that this was the right thing for our nation. Joe Biden has always put our country first. And his ability to keep fighting these next 6 months, to get things right on the world stage, to address the tragedy and the conflict in Gaza with Israel, to secure freedom for the people of Ukraine as they continue to fight Russian aggression, to put some finishing touches on critical work in the Indo-Pacific, and to do that while also leading a campaign effort for the Democratic nominee. I think that opportunity to keep fighting for the things that matter ultimately won out over he personally being the nominee of our party. This is a momentous, a difficult, and a heartfelt decision, and I deeply respect how he made it.
Senator Chris Coons, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And it is now 3:30 on the East Coast. And just to update everyone who is just joining us, President Biden has made the decision to drop out of the 2024 presidential contest. This happened at about 1:45 Eastern time, so almost 2 hours ago, informing his campaign team just a minute before he put this statement out, where he said, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." President Biden has also endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris, to be the Democratic nominee. And we have also heard from the Clintons in a joint statement saying they endorse the vice president to become the nominee because, in their words, America's future depends on it. They say they have been through many ups and downs, but the Clintons saying nothing has made us more worried for our country than the threat posed by a second Trump term. I want to bring in Ed O'Keefe, who covers the White House as well. And this has been a difficult decision for President Biden, who has been described as very angry as he is still recovering from COVID at his home in Delaware. What ultimately moved him to make this decision?
Well, we're still trying to figure out exactly what it was, but there were obviously a collection of things that were occurring, and the latest that had come essentially in the overnight hours is the fact that money was becoming an issue. Donald Trump now has more money on hand than Joe Biden does in his campaign coffers, and so that was a signal that after weeks of hearing that donors were withholding large sums of money not only to his campaign, but to the various super PACs that run ads and try to find people across the country to turn out and vote, that it was going to become difficult to keep the lights on conceivably in the coming weeks and to pay for the advertising and the travel and the staffing necessary across the country. So that was another factor that had emerged just in the last days. And we don't know that that is necessarily the one, but it is a big data point that affects any candidate when they're in the crunch if they start to see money issues. This appears to be becoming a conversation about how do we formally nominate her, the vice president, and then who do we pick as her running mate. There are no indications yet, and Bob has reported this as well, that there are no others currently planning to step up and challenge her after the president said what he said this afternoon, endorsing his running mate. But there will be a conversation about who is most palatable, who makes the most sense to be on the ticket with him. We've heard about a handful of governors, some senators as well across the country from key swing states that could conceivably happen. We've seen some statements from some of those that have raised concerns about the president in recent days. Let's look at this list, for example, here. You have Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, the Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, the Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. Those four right there are seen as potential good ones because they have executive experience. They've run modestly sized states, or in the case of Andy Beshear, won re-election as a Democrat in a red state, and are seen as the kind of person who can be sent out to campaign with the Senate and House candidates who for the last 3 weeks have been saying they can't campaign alongside the president. Others on that list, Mark Kelly from Arizona would be an interesting pick, the former astronaut from a swing state as a Democratic governor who could replace him.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel. We have breaking news of Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race.
Democrats, assuming that Vice President Kamala Harris could carry the same states that they did in the last election, the most contested ones being the blue wall, giving Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin.
For you guys across the globe, in the Caribbean islands and around the world, if you guys love politics, it's the right time now to listen in to our new breaking news of Joe Biden dropping out of the race and give the baton to Kamala Harrison, which is the first black woman to be running for president. So I'm sure this politics for the 2024 election will be interesting. So if you guys like politics, tune in, check out my live. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning in.
On his shoulders. He has felt wounded at times from how fellow Democrats, including from the Obama-Biden administration, have talked about him publicly, how he feels pressured to get out of the race, but he kept this decision extremely close. His son Hunter, reportedly in California, not in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, this weekend. He's talking to his sister Valerie, talking, of course, to the First Lady, Jill Biden. And they've all said to him in recent days, you do what's best for you. This is your decision to make. And he's been alone because of COVID, not because he wants to be alone. He's actually been in a pretty salty mood, I've been told, because of COVID, and he doesn't have the ability to use his phone as much or have the kind of meetings he wants to have. But there have been some key people who've really helped him with this decision, thinking through. Mike Donnelly, who goes back decades with him, one of his longtime trusted advisors. They always say Donnelly is like a parish priest. He never speaks. He has this kind of kind demeanor. He almost never speaks in meetings. He only speaks to Biden. He has that kind of relationship. Doesn't speak to other advisors because it could trickle out. President Biden, I'm told by his closest advisors, has been angry about the leaks, about anger towards him, about his electability. He has also made clear to people privately that Vice President Harris needs to be fully supported. And they're watching in the coming days. Not only does President Biden address the country, but will she address the country in some capacity? It's unusual for a vice president to have a national address, but she could make some sort of major speech that's not formal with the office of the vice presidency, but a political speech to reintroduce herself to the country. And as late as yesterday evening, some of the people closest to Biden still believe the decision was fluid, was being acted, that this is something that came together with 3 or 4 people in the last 6 to 12 hours.
And that I can confirm, having reached out to some of the folks who even this morning, like Cedric Richmond on our air, on Face the Nation this morning, coming out and backing Joe Biden, saying he is staying in this race. I reached out to others from the campaign who said they were also surprised because they went out in fight mode this morning saying he's dedicated, he's not giving up. It was news to them when this was announced. You know, when it comes to the vice president, Nora, it's important to remember, this isn't the first time the question has been asked, is she ready? This was an 81-year-old president. Every single interview Kamala Harris has done, she's been asked, are you ready? Because she was a heartbeat away, and that meant something for an 81-year-old president. I was just looking at my last interview with her, and she said, yes, I am, if necessary, but Joe Biden is going to be fine. That was last September. That's why we've been talking about Joe Biden's age as a factor in this election and worry for the electorate. But during the Democratic primary process, we were told, put that aside. The public was told it is not a factor in his viability. And yet, 3 weeks ago, that changed completely at the debate. We watched it. We covered it in that moment, and the ground shifted.
It's an excellent point about how much has changed in such a short period of time. And now, while Kamala Harris has been endorsed by the president, by the Clintons, by a number of other top governors saying they will not challenge her at this hour, there is still a test that presents itself in running for president of the United States. There is no sharper spotlight than a presidential race. It does things to people. It changes them. It changes people's views of them, no matter how qualified you are. People have stereotypical views. It is a tough grinder to run for president of the United States. She has the benefit of having run for president. She has the benefit of being 4 years almost in the vice presidential mansion in the White House side by side. Joe Biden has kept her in a lot of these key decisions by her side, but now this will test her and those around her in a way that she's not been tested to this point.
And she has been on the campaign trail quite consistently over the last several weeks since the debate, and even before that fateful debate. Just yesterday, raising $2 million up in Cape Cod with thousands of supporters.
And I've been watching some of her speeches, and they've been very vigorous.
Yeah.
And they have been very tough in terms of taking apart Donald Trump, his second term, Project 2025, which is not associated with the Trump campaign, but there are strong ties between former Trump officials and this heritage project, which many people view as a dark turn if that were to become part of a new administration. So she has been at the front of prosecuting the case against Donald Trump, but much of her speeches have not been covered either on local or national news.
Well, I've traveled with her in recent weeks on Air Force 2 to see her up close as a political athlete. What's she like? And let me tell you this, based on my reporting, she is not the Kamala Harris we saw in 2020, who was a United States Senator, running as a progressive favorite for the presidency. Where did I see her in Philadelphia, Nora? In union halls, meeting with older union leaders, union workers. She's going to the Biden coalition and saying, I'm your voice. The Sean Fains of the world, the UAWs, the Philadelphia labor leaders, the labor leaders and workers in Atlanta, Georgia, these key states. This is someone who is saying, I'm going to have a broader reach than everyone believes in American politics. I'm not just this progressive from California. I am someone who has adopted the Biden political playbook, and I'm here to use that to win in 2024.
And as the conversation about the vice president continues and we ask the question of what's next and how are things being put together here, the political arm of the Congressional Black Caucus has made it official and is now endorsing her. That gives you a sense of how things are coalescing quite quickly. Earlier this hour, Emily's List, which of course is the organization designed to elect women to political office, also endorsed her. So key elements of the Democratic Party coming under her wing already just within hours of the president's announcement. We also know that there will be a meeting at the top of the 5 p.m. Eastern hour of the Biden campaign and some Democratic National Committee officials to sort of go over what to expect next. We have no word yet whether we will hear from the vice president today, what her reaction is to all of this, whether she has spoken directly to the president. That's information we're seeking and obviously in hot pursuit of. But it's believed that we will hear from her at some point by the end of today in some form, acknowledging the president's decision and announcing what her intentions are.
President Biden dropping out of the 2024 race for president and endorsing Kamala Harris. Those close to the president want the focus today to be on his legacy and what he has done for the American people. But already there is a focus on will Kamala Harris face any challenges in her effort to become the Democratic presidential nominee. So far, already a strong statement from the Clintons, a joint statement endorsing her as the next nominee at a peak.
And now there's a lengthy statement from President Obama, which to my initial read has no endorsement of the vice president, but says in part, President Biden pointed us away from 4 years of chaos, falsehood, and division that had characterized Donald Trump's administration. Through his best policies and his example, Joe has reminded us of who we are at our best. A country committed old-fashioned values like trust and honesty, kindness and hard work. A country that believes in democracy, rule of law, and accountability. It says later, we will be navigating uncharted waters in the days ahead, but I have extraordinary confidence that the leaders of our party will be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges. I believe that Joe Biden's vision of a generous, prosperous, and united America that provides opportunity for everyone will be on full display at the Democratic Convention in August. And I expect that every single one of us are prepared to carry that message of hope and progress forward into November and beyond. For now, Michelle, I just want to express our love and gratitude to Joe and Jill for leading us so ably and courageously during these perilous times, and for their commitment to the ideals of freedom and equality this country's founded on. No endorsement there of the Vice President.
So some new information coming to light to CBS News. Everyone now is watching to see how former President Trump handles this. Vice President Harris now likely the Democratic nominee. As we were in Milwaukee for the convention, Nora, who was perhaps the most influential person at that convention? Donald Trump Jr., the former president's son, who helped the former president pick J.D. Vance as his running mate. Donald Trump Jr. just texted me, CBS News, and he said, Kamala Harris, the vice president, owns the entire left-wing policy of President Biden. The only difference is that she is even more liberal and less competent than Joe, which is really saying something. She was put in charge of the border, and we saw the worst invasion of a terrible. He says he failed on the immigration issue. Donald Trump Jr. to CBS News already attacking in a very sharply worded text message to me, Vice President Kamala Harris. If this is an indicator. This is going to be rough and tumble like we've never seen it. Not necessarily within the Democratic Party being unite, as we keep seeing minute by minute in the Democratic Party, but the former president's son, who is one of the most influential Republicans in the country, close to Tucker Carlson, close to his father, close to all these senators and governors, he's already attacking. Vice President Harris says she owns the entire policy of President Biden, even more liberal, and he's saying she's not competent.
Were very personal. Yeah. They continue to be, and they were very tough on her record. And I can imagine that they are refreshing that playbook.
I can only imagine that. And a woman at the top of the ticket will take slings and arrows.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel. Breaking news. Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race, and he endorsed Kamala Harris is VP to be the next president for the Democrats if she wins. So welcome for you guys across the globe. If you're into politics, please tune in and watch our live broadcast of Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race. Welcome. Please share it with your family if they're interested in politics. Your friends, please share, like, and subscribe to my channel. There's a lot of stuff I do on my channel. I'm a hairstylist. I do hair. I like different kind of fruits. I share videos of my fruits, videos about lifestyle, everything. So my channel have pretty much every little thing on there, so you guys can check it out. And please like, subscribe, and share. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Give me thumbs up if you like my channel. You can make comments or
As Bob was hearing from Donald Trump Jr., the Trump campaign has now issued a more formal statement laying out how it plans to prosecute the case against the vice president, saying, quote, she's just as much a joke as Biden is. Harris will be even worse for the people of our nation than Joe Biden. She's been the enabler in chief for crooked Joe this entire time. They own each other's records, and there is no distance between the two. Harris must defend the failed Biden administration and her liberal weak on crime record in California, the Trump campaign records. In essence, saying, here's how we're going to take her on. In essence, saying, his administration, her administration, we're just going to keep running the race against them in that record. It's a signal that, and we know in recent days there's been concerns with how to prosecute the case against her. But for now, at least, it looks like they just want to be consistent and say her record is his record.
All right, Ed O'Keefe, thank you. I want to bring in now Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. Senator, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Hi. First, your reaction. Did you think it was...
The infrastructure bill everyone always talked about, taking on the pharmaceutical companies, to bringing the world together and strengthening NATO, to bringing back the rule of law and putting in Ketanji Brown Jackson on the Supreme Court. And my heart goes out to him and his family and everything they've done for their country, that he took the honorable path today.
And Senator, are you endorsing Kamala Harris, the Vice President, to be the next Democratic nominee?
I am. I think you know, Nora, that Kamala Harris and I ran against each other for president. And what I've incredibly strong leader who will bring to this office and to this campaign the receipts. She, along with President Biden, got our nation through this pandemic. We've seen record job increases. She is someone that knows the work, knows the job, and I also know her as a good person. I actually got to be better friends of hers when we ran against each other than we just knew each other more casually in the Senate. So I'm very excited about this. I heard you talking ahead of time about, what this is going to do for the ticket. I think this is going to be an incredible shot in the arm in terms of there's going to be a lot of excitement, and I can't wait to get started.
President Biden endorsing his vice president. The Clintons in a joint statement endorsing the vice president. President Barack Obama issuing a statement, but he did not endorse her, instead talking about the legacy of Joe Biden, his former vice president. Senator, do you expect there to be any challenge to Kamala Harris in acquiring the Democratic nomination?
I don't know that right now, Nora. There could be. This is a democracy, and our party has always been a big tent party. We bring people in. That's the way President Biden and Kamala Harris went on to win the White House. And I think the important thing right now is there's going to be such a clear contrast between these two leaders. You have Kamala Harris, the former prosecutor, someone who is going to stand up for a woman's right to make her own decision about her health care. Then you have Donald Trump, who has been, convicted and who has faced multiple indictments. At the same time, his views on freedom, when you look at his position, he said in a video that he was probably the person to overturn Roe v. Wade and to put those judges in place. You'll see the difference on their economic plans and standing up for people. It is Vice President Harris in her leadership role, and I worked with her on a number of infrastructure projects for Minnesota. We didn't just talk the talk. She and President Biden got it done. So I just think we're going to see a big contrast as we go forward, and I cannot wait to see that first debate, coming up when those two are going to go head-to-head, because Kamala Harris is a fierce competitor, and she's going to go on to be the President of the United States.
And who do you think she should choose, and who should the Democratic Party choose as her running mate?
I think you're going to have a lot of excitement. There is no shortage of running mates for Kamala Harris.
Senator, as you know, have Margaret and Robert and Ed O'Keefe here who would like to get in as well on this breaking news. So I'll let Margaret go first.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel.
Good to talk to you.
Breaking news. Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race and endorsed Kamala Harris, his vice president. So it's very interesting for you guys across the globe. If you're into politics, please tune in to my channel. Please like, subscribe, and share. Share it with your friends and family if they're interested into American politics. It's very interesting. I mean, it's entertaining, I would say. Welcome.
I don't think she's going to shut anyone out. And what we want here is the most qualified person for the job. And I think today is the day, I would say, in this fast speed dating that we're going to be going through for the vice presidential choice. But today is the day where we honor President Biden's legacy and his very difficult decision, which events that we didn't, I think, were not expected by a lot of people, happened quickly, and he made a decision, a patriotic decision for our country. And then we also celebrate the fact that someone with the skills and the leadership ability of Kamala Harris was endorsed by President Biden and many other of my colleagues.
But for Democrats, if this is a race that Democrats have to win, because as you say, democracy is at stake, that selection of a running mate could really be decisive here. And certainly with the vice president, she has been able to talk about reproductive health care in a really strong way. She has talked certainly about some other issues like that. And I wonder what you think is needed to complete the ticket. Are there qualities, are there topics, are there issues that you think
could shift the tide, because as you know, in our polling, Donald Trump is ahead, whether it's Kamala Harris or Joe Biden.
Well aware, but it's a very close race, and I think you know that. Now we're going to have a whole new game, an entirely new ticket. And I think, again, you want to have someone for this job that, one, she trusts. We know how important that is, how good presidents and vice presidents of both parties have worked together in the past. Number two, you want to have someone who knows how to govern, who could step into the job. So I believe sometimes you have a situation for some reason in our national politics where it is really hard to find someone. She's got a lot of great choices.
Senator Klobuchar, Bob Costa, some of your colleagues came out publicly against President Biden. There was a pressure campaign, not just behind the scenes, but Senator Tester, Senator Brown, and others, and among many House members, came out. Do you believe that was an appropriate decision by your colleagues to take those public stands against the president? Because many of President Biden's allies tell me this afternoon, Senator, that many of the Democrats in the Senate and in the House effectively put him in a corner, that he was forced to make this decision. And while many are being positive at this moment about that they believe a ticket...
I am so disappointed about him dropping out of the race, but I guess if he thinks that's the best thing for him to do, yes. Looking at his last debate, it makes me wonder. So I know it's a lot for the president, but I'm sure he will make the right decision. And that's what he think the right decision was to drop out and put his VP in. So I think he do a great job. I think he did very respectfully and making the right choice for our country.
It's no time for that right now. Because to me, the main goal here is to make sure that we have a president that respects the rule of law, that's going to stand up for working people in this country.
Please like, share, and subscribe. Please go to my channel. I have all different kind of lifestyle stuff on my channel that you'd like. Some are a little bit funny. Some are tutoring on how to do hair. I put my food on there. So it's a little bit interesting. You guys can go and check it out. TKS Hair Salon.
I don't know enough about her. I don't think that she's qualified to do this. She hasn't been out there as much. She, you know, the media is going on social media, basically all I ever see. What do you tell them? Why is she capable of being commander-in-chief of the United States of America?
Well, for me, I started where she started. She started as a prosecutor. That's a hard job. You've got to make decisions. You've got to take on very difficult cases. You've got to, your main goal is to make sure people are safe. And that's the main goals of government. That's how she started in politics. I then go to her term as a senator, where she was a fierce advocate for justice and for the people of this country. She stood up against, in our judiciary hearings, some of those very Supreme Court justices who made the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. She stood up against those Supreme Court justices who issued the decision that has meant that 1 out of 3 women in this country are now living in states that have extreme abortion bans. I then moved on to her time as vice president. We all remember what that was like when they came in. I was there on that inauguration stage under the beautiful blue sky, and I saw her get sworn in. And from there, she and President Biden had to get us through this pandemic. And we emerged from one of the most difficult times in our history, where we were in 300 million separate silos, where people weren't even able to go out and go to their grandma's birthday parties anymore. And we came out of that strong, so that our economy is not just stable, we are adding jobs and adding more jobs. They made a focus, and I remember Vice President Harris talking about this when we were debating each other for the presidency. They made a focus of making sure we got there on infrastructure, on manufacturing in America again, on bringing back the rule of law. So she is going to have more than a case to prosecute. She is going to have a case to be made for the future of America, and that's what's going to be on the line in this election. That's not our constituents. And I would also point to more than a few bridges and other things, and broadband and practical things that this administration has brought home to them.
appreciate it.
All right, great.
And it is 4 o'clock in the east, 1 o'clock in the west. And for those of you that are just joining us, our breaking news, President Biden announced he is ending his re-election bid. It happened at exactly 1:46 p.m. Eastern Time. The president writing in a statement that it has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. And then in a separate social media post, the president endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris, to replace him as the party's standard bearer ahead of its national convention. That Democratic convention begins August 19th in Chicago. And we should note that President Biden is the first president since Lyndon Johnson in 1968 to decline to seek a second term. And in fact, no sitting president has dropped out of race so late in the election cycle in American history. Robert Costa.
It's really important we step back and look at the history. Politics is unfolding right now like a tide coming into the shore. We have not seen anything like this since 1968. When Lyndon Johnson decided to not seek the Democratic nomination, the date was March 31st, 1968. We are now in the hot summer of American politics after the Republican National Convention, just weeks after the Democratic Convention in Chicago in August. And this is a time that is so tumultuous in presidential history. In August 1974, Richard Nixon resigns the presidency. And now we will remember, and books in history will come, that in July of 2024, President Joe Biden, alone in Delaware with just a few staffers and family members, decided to not seek the Democratic nomination as he looked out at the beach in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. It's a seismic, shocking moment. Everything is in motion now for Vice President Harris. But for a president to decide to not seek this under pressure from his party, after thinking about the presidency going back more than a half century, it is hard to understate how much of a painful personal decision this was and how monumental a political moment it is for the United States.
That the sitting president of the United States faced a rebellion within his own party at a time challenging Donald Trump in a rematch between the two of them. Two men, 81 years old, 78, Donald Trump. There's so much about this campaign.
And when I stepped off the set to talk to one of his closest friends, they said me something very interesting. They said when Lyndon Johnson stepped away in 1968, at least Senator Eugene McCarthy and Senator Bobby Kennedy had the guts to run against him publicly. What makes President Biden so bitter this afternoon in Delaware is that at 81 years old, he had to relent to pressure that was often private from allies of former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and President Trump.
And at this hour, we are hearing from the Vice President
Now.
of the United States. Let's go now to Nancy Cordes at the White House. Nancy.
Nora, we've just received our first statement from Vice President Harris since President Biden through his endorsement to her. She says, on behalf of the American people, I thank Joe Biden for his extraordinary leadership as President of the United States and for his decades of service to our country. She goes on to say, it is a profound honor to serve as his Vice President. I am deeply grateful to the President, Dr. Biden, and the entire Biden family. She calls what he has done a selfless and patriotic act. She says President Biden is doing what he has done throughout his life of service, putting the American people and our country above everything else. And then at the end, Nora, she says this, I am honored to have the President's endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination. Over the past year, I have traveled across the country talking with Americans about the clear choice in this momentous election, and this is what I will continue to do in the days and weeks ahead. I will do everything in my power to unite the Democratic Party and unite our nation to defeat Donald Trump and his Extreme Project 2025 agenda. In short, Nora, she is saying that with 107 days to go.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel. Breaking news: Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race and endorsed VP Kamala Harrison. Big surprise to everyone.
Is that correct? This afternoon, Nora, there are meetings taking place across this town as Democrats as quickly as possible to transform this campaign into a Kamala Harris campaign. CBS News has just learned that the White House Chief of Staff, Jeff Zients, held a meeting with cabinet officials this afternoon to inform them of the president's decision, to explain to them why the president had done this. We know that there's a meeting coming up a little bit later among Democratic National Committee officials. There are 107 days to go, and this is a very large ship to turn. And as Amy Klobuchar put it when she just spoke to you, no matter who said what in the days leading up to this, now time is of the essence, and we simply need to buckle down and get to work if Kamala Harris is going to have a chance to beat the Trump juggernaut.
Nancy Cordes at the White House with that new statement from the Vice President. Nancy, thank you.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends and family across the globe. Those of you who are interested in politics, American politics, it's very interesting right now. And it will only get better with Trump. Trust me, it is going to be interesting. Welcome to my channel. Please like and subscribe. Breaking news, and and Joe Biden dropping out of the race and endorsing Kamala Harris for the President of the United States of America.
For anyone else who's considering it. I suspect we'll see a lot more maneuvering for those that might be willing to be her running mate, among governors, among senators across the country who've been mentioned, mostly men, though there is conversation about putting 2 women on the ticket. And just following up on that cabinet meeting, we know that most, but not necessarily all, of the Biden cabinet was on that call with the White House Chief of Staff, Jeff Zients. One of the people familiar with it said that Zients confirmed the reports of the president's decision, and they worked for the, quote, consequential work of this administration and the president's expectation of continuing the historic work of the administration over the next 6 months. In essence, telling the cabinet, please don't go anywhere, we still have work to do.
And they truly do. On the international front, reaction is already pouring in. We have the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. We have Israel's president releasing statements. Joe Biden is still the commander-in-chief for at least another 5 months here. And what this does allow him to do, and what some of those trying to urge him to make this decision were saying, is focus on the commander-in-chief role. Whether it is Middle East peace, we have the Israeli Prime Minister shifting his visit now to have a face-to-face meeting with Joe Biden to Tuesday. He'll be addressing Congress Wednesday. You have this effort to say to Joe Biden, focus on the things that you care most about in your legacy. A lot of that having to do with foreign policy, not just because of his time in Congress focusing on these issues, but because we're in such a moment of upheaval. And there is also a desire to signal to the world that America's not in disarray, even though our political system sort of looks that way right now. There's going to be a real push from the national security oriented officials to try to signal all is fine and well and moving ahead on a charted course, even though we know we haven't seen a political race like this.
To build on what Nancy just said, Vice President Harris made this statement, and she said she will earn the nomination. She's going to work to earn the nomination. And we have new reporting that she will have to do some work to earn the nomination. Senator Peter Welch, a Democrat of Vermont, just issued a statement moments ago saying, I am confident in our ability to win and beat former President Trump, but our party has many capable, proven leaders, Vice President Harris among them. We have a deep bench who we should consider. So not everyone in this wave of solidarity behind Vice President Harris is offering their immediate endorsement. So she will have some work to do, at least in the United States Senate. Not everyone is echoing what Senator Klobuchar told you.
Senator Welch, not from a battleground state, from the state of Vermont, so...
But a progressive. The progressive wing is the one to watch. He's also close friends with Senator Bernie Sanders. What do they do? So far, they may want to make a negotiation on the vice presidential selection, because there's going to be a big push already to have Governor Bashir or someone else from a region of the country where Republicans have done well to counter Senator Vance being on the Republican ticket. But look for progressives in the party to say, not so fast. We need to be considered too for that number 2 slot.
Although Samila Jayapal, the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus in the House, has endorsed very quickly.
In a vice presidential nomination, they're not going to want to see it just go quickly to someone they perceive as moderate, at least based on our conversations.
Both of you bring up an excellent point, which is the congressional reaction. So let's bring in Scott McFarland, who covers the Hill for us. And Scott, summarize what you have seen so far from Democratic lawmakers.
We're getting it from both parties, Nora. It's a tidal wave of reactions, some of which is uniquely interesting and important. Let's begin, though, with Senator Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader, did speak with President Biden today as the announcement was made. He issued a statement of support for President Biden, but didn't mention Vice President Harris, nor did the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, mention Vice President Harris. We're seeing this block of endorsements grow from her former colleagues in the U.S. Senate. Patty Murray, the top Senate Democrat who is from Washington State, third in the line of presidential succession, she's endorsed Vice President Harris. Mark Warner, chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee from Virginia, he's endorsed Vice President Harris. And all these other names, Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts, who has the pulse of the progressive wing of the party, the chairs of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Progressive Caucus, Black Caucus, Asia Pacific Caucus. She is getting this influx of support that may make her difficult to catch because she's running now so fast out of the gates. We're also hearing from Republicans, Nora, no surprise. They're trying to fan some flames here, perhaps mechanize or weaponize this transition into a political benefit. The House Speaker, Mike Johnson, says President Biden should resign if there are questions about his ability to serve another 4 years. Does he have the ability to serve the next 6 months? Steve Daines, senior Republican from Montana, issuing the same statement, but also for Mitch McConnell, something different, saying it's Democrats upending the expressed will of the American people. What you're hearing from Republicans is this argument that Democrats are circumventing the democratic process, trying to push back on Democrats who, on January 6th and after the 2020 election, accused Republicans of trying to upend an election. And a couple other notes here, Nora. We're seeing some unique statements that are worth amplifying. Richard Hudson, who chairs the House Republican Campaign Committee, he's a North Carolina Republican, who says this is a scandal, that there may be questions about who knew what about the president's health. You can see that thread getting pulled by Republicans. And the Wisconsin Democrat, progressive Mark Pocan, who appeared July 5th, side by side with the president at a rally in Madison, Wisconsin, trying to reinvigorate the Biden campaign after that debate, issued a statement saying it's time for the Republicans to talk about the future of their candidate, Donald Trump.
All right, Scott McFarlane, thank you. As we have noted, no sitting president has dropped out of a race so late in the election cycle and is now just less than a month before.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel. Breaking news about Joe Biden dropping out of the presidential race and endorsing his VP, Kamala Harris. Exciting news, entertainment, political, drama, you name it. If you're into politics, this is the time for you to listen in. Debates.
Biden won an overwhelming majority. Those people, of course, knew that President Biden was 81. They knew that Kamala Harris was the vice president at the time. And the nominee was not official by any means until the delegates vote. And there was some question as to whether or not that would happen early August or perhaps during the convention. In either case, that delegate selection of the nominee would have made it official, and only then does the Democratic Party's nominee go on to any particular state's ballot. That was also true for, of course, the Republican Party up until last week when former President Trump officially received the nomination. As we currently stand now, there is no state in the country that so long as the Democrats select their nominee and the vice presidential running mate by that point in time, the second to last week in August, there is no legal or practical issue with that ticket appearing on the ballot in any state. So what we'll see over the course of the next few weeks, of course, is there might be some political wrangling here and there to see where that ticket comes out. But there will be nominees selected at some point in August by the Democratic Party, and they will appear on the ballot in every one of those 50 states.
Ed O'Keefe has a question.
I just want you to underscore what you just said there, David. You, in your view, in your studied view of election law, there is no reason to believe any legal challenge could come to the Democratic ticket because they're not going to miss any deadlines that would put them on the ballot?
That's exactly what I'm saying, and I think I want everyone to think about this a little more clearly. I expect there might be some frivolous claims brought, but what those claims would essentially be saying is that some other party would be claiming that they can force the Democratic Party to pick someone as their nominee that has decided not to serve as the nominee or president. There's no legal basis for this whatsoever. And in fact, if this were applied in any particular states, I want to harken back to the Colorado disqualification case earlier this year, where the Trump campaign and Donald Trump argued that you could not give a state the power to remove a candidate from the ballot because that would create this patchwork of laws and affect the outcome. And all 9 justices agreed with that. They said it was not appropriate for a single state to act in such a way. In that case, it was with regard to the 14th Amendment and the possible insurrection that Donald Trump had incited. But it would be a real problem to allow any state to affect the outcome of the election by refusing to put a duly nominated candidate on the ballot.
But you agree that there's a good chance there might be someone out there or some entity out there that tries to challenge the legality of them changing their ticket this late, right?
I've certainly heard from some groups and individuals that made that claim in advance, and we've certainly seen that there's no bar to people apparently being willing to bring frivolous litigation. However, I'm about as close as I can be 100% confident that that litigation will be quickly disposed of, that there is a very strong legal, ethical value in allowing the parties under the United States Constitution to select their nominees by whatever process they have. This is the process the Democratic Party has laid out. If a nominee, if a presumptive nominee, is unable or is unwilling to serve as a candidate, and that happens before the convention, the delegates can then select their nominee, but there is no nominee right now, and there was no nominee yesterday, and there won't be a nominee until the delegates vote, presumably in August.
David Becker, our election law expert, always great to have you. Thank you so much. Let's bring in Joel Payne. He is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. And Joel, I know you are speaking with fellow Democrats who are involved in this campaign. Tell me what they are saying. Do you expect that the party will unite behind the vice president, or will there be a challenge in some sort of mini primary or some sort of contested contest at the convention?
Well, the early indications are that there's a lot of momentum to rally behind Vice President Harris, as you've seen from some of the statements. There have been some statements that have notably not talked about a Harris endorsement, President Obama's statement for one, Speaker Emeritus Pelosi for another, and others. One thing I have talked to some folks about is whether or not that is, and I think Bob might have mentioned this earlier, might be a way for some of those folks to keep their powder dry and maybe to negotiate an agenda or negotiate a direction of the, what the Harris agenda might look like, similar to what Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did recently with President Biden as he was going through this tough, tumultuous political period. So it might not be that those folks won't be there in the end. It might just be that those folks are keeping their powder dry. And I'm talking to some Democrats about that. But more broadly, I just think that the Democratic Party was in a very tense mood over the last month. And I think the fact that this is finally out is a giant sigh of relief for those in the party who can now get along with the business of figuring out how to unite and figuring out how to come together in time for a convention that is less than a month away and a very consequential, important election that the Democrats are looking at this fall where they are behind. And whatever you think of Vice President Harris, she is behind. If she is the front runner on the Democratic side, she is behind in this race, and she has a lot of work to do, be it fundraising, be it uniting the party. Donald Trump certainly enters convention season and exits convention season in this race, and Democrats know they have a lot of work ahead of them.
Joel Payne, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Also want to bring in CBS News political contributor Terry Sullivan. He served as the campaign manager for Marco Rubio's 2016 presidential run. And Terry, I mean, this is so unusual, of course, as you know, as someone who's run a campaign, you put so much money, you put so much research into running against one person to have this change this late. What do you think is happening now in the Donald Trump campaign?
Yeah, look, when I've talked to some of my friends in the campaign, and, they're less than excited. They were ready for a landslide victory against Joe Biden. And now they're just hopeful that the Democrats push can kind of force through Kamala Harris as the nominee instead of letting an open process, because she has to defend the same policies. Because at the end of the day, it's not about a debate performance. His numbers were polling terribly before that debate, and it was based on those policies. It's inflation, border crisis, and she owns those issues just like Joe Biden did. So I think she'll be just as weak a candidate as Joe Biden was, and I think that's what a lot of the folks within the Trump campaign are hoping for.
Mm-hmm. And do you believe, though, that this gives a shot in the arm to not only the Democratic ticket, but also the base?
Yeah, look, they're a little bit of the dog that caught the car, though. I mean, in that it's interesting. The folks who seem to be the drivers behind forcing the president out for the nomination, be it Pelosi, be it Barack Obama, they have not endorsed. They didn't roll out with that statement, and I think that's rather telling. The people that are jumping to her support are all the same folks who were saying that Joe Biden's not going anywhere 12 hours ago. And so I do think there is a divide within the Democrat Party still. We'll see how it plays out. Are they all going to rally behind Kamala?
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel. I hope you guys are enjoying this breaking news about Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race and endorsing Kamala Harris. Very interesting. For you guys across the globe, I hope you're entertained by our politics in America. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. There's all kind of stuff on my channel, so please check it out. Thank you.
Delegates and donors in the Democratic Party, but I think things started escalating after each performance President Biden did. He didn't seem to be up to snuff. I know it seems minor when you happen to make a mistake of calling, switching out Zelensky and Putin. But when Biden did that at NATO, the media culture that we live in will keep reinforcing it. So people remember Biden at the very end here did the right thing getting out. Kamala Harris is his. He had the bravery in 2020 to choose her. They had 80 million people vote for Biden Harris. Now it's going to be Harris with Joe Biden serving as her coach. And all of the delegates that Biden had, that Joe Biden, all the love I've been hearing on the show from Senator Coons and Klobuchar and others who have loved Joe Biden, well, they got they follow what Biden would like them to do and get 100% behind Kamala Harris. And as you mentioned, I believe, Nora, I mean, it is grueling on the campaign trails, Nora said a little bit ago, just grueling. And there was no way President Biden could do 7 speeches a day. This was not going to be staying in the White House or Camp David or Rehoboth. You can't do a lockdown. We're not in COVID lockdown. You can't run like that. So in the end, you did need somebody with more vigor and more energy. And Vice President Harris has shown that, not just here at home, but she's been at 21 countries abroad. And yet she's not known by a lot of Americans. So there'll be a new excitement of this notion of the prosecutor going against the felon. That's how the Harris Biden team are going to position her. And then on CBS News, you'll be showing, I tell you, will be a lot, the clips of Senator Harris when she went after Kavanaugh and then went after Barr on women's reproductive rights. Both Donald Trump and Joe Biden have been ham-fisted on that issue. It is the forte of Kamala Harris, and that now is going to, I think, rise to being a leading issue for the Democratic Party as we turn into August.
David, do you think age will continue to be an issue? I'm sorry, Douglas. Do you think age will continue to be an issue and it's turned against Donald Trump? And the reason I ask that is something you just said made me think about that. You said, Joe Biden couldn't go out and do 7 campaign events a day. But Donald Trump hasn't been doing 7 campaign events a day. He's been doing 1 event a day. And probably in one of the few attacks that Joe Biden made well and landed a joke, he said, well, Donald Trump usually does one event a day and then spends the rest of the day riding around in his golf cart and actually fills out his scorecard before he hits the ball. So do you think that the Democrats may shift the debate on age?
Yes, but remember, Donald Trump has Truth Social. He has his own built-in media infrastructure. So while he's on that golf cart, he's sending out a message every second. And there are controversial ones, so it's not at all what you see, a similarity to what Biden's been able to do. Kamala Harris, though, has to get media enthusiasm, just like J.D. Vance's Hillbilly Elegy went to the very top of the bestseller list after the convention. You're going to see Kamala Harris's memoir, and it's a well-done book about her American journey rising to number one. And you're going to see photographs of her as a child growing up, and her time in Oakland, and her mother, and her time in Canada. And they're going to have to sell Kamala Harris's persona. Trump sold that a long time ago with The Apprentice, so he doesn't have to do that kind of introduction. She's going to have to, I think, probably hit more campaign stops than would be normal just to counter Trump's mega media sets.
It's an excellent point. David Brinkley, always good to have you. Douglas Brinkley, as you know, I love Douglas. Of course, my first job in journalism was with David Brinkley, the great David Brinkley, who would love to be here at this moment. So, Douglas, thank you, as always.
Thank you.
We're at such an unusual moment. The relentless pace of the news that we're even just following at this hour, which has me distracted because of the reaction that's coming in, the text that I am sending to people inside the Biden team. Because one of the questions that we have not answered at this hour is what finally put the president over the edge. We know that there was this rebellion within the Democratic Party, but there was also a large portion of the Democratic Party that was behind Joe Biden. He is sick, alone in Delaware with COVID. What changed today? We were told he's still in it. His campaign believed he was still in it. He was preparing to meet with the Israeli Prime Minister, who's coming here to Washington. He's on the cusp of a potential peace deal. And so the question is, was it the money? Right? Was it someone in his family? Was it some new polling data? Was it all of it?
Well, and all of it publicly. Democratic leadership set up a permission structure for this public embarrassment over the past 3 weeks. This was not a conversation behind closed doors. It spilled up into the open because he wasn't coming to the conclusion that he was being urged to come to. And so this was, as I said earlier, death by 1,000 cuts. But we also know that there were threats. Just earlier on Face the Nation, I was speaking to Dean Phillips of Minnesota, who said there was talk of having an anonymous straw poll among members of Congress to express faith and confidence in the president. He was saying the numbers just aren't there. We only have a tally of, 40 odd people who went on the record. There were more lawmakers behind the scenes who were expressing doubts. And it's the down ballot races, it's the money, it's the public no confidence, it's the image on the world stage as well. It all has to have weighed on him tremendously, Nora. And, I've been looking at the international reaction that's spilling in. One thing that is going to be an attack point we've heard from Republicans so far, we just also heard from Russia. The Russian foreign minister coming out and saying all of this is a conspiracy of the American media and the political circles that they hid the true state of affairs. Russia telling Americans this message we've already heard from some Republicans: don't trust your elected leaders. Not only is the system rigged, but they lied to you about the health of the American president. And now they've been forced to be honest about it, manipulating this. And I make that point because we know it was just 2 weeks ago that senior intelligence officials briefed reporters and said Donald Trump remains Moscow's favorite candidate in this election. He then goes on to select a vice president who is extremely critical of Ukraine and blocking aid. All these things building for Joe Biden to look at the what if. What if I lose? And that's who potentially could be stepping in there. You just have to wonder, what is it that triggered it for him?
And our chief adversary, China. What about Donald Trump's relationship with the Chinese president.
Well, just last night at this rally in Michigan, former President Trump said he just received a lovely note from Xi Jinping and talked about how he got along so well with some of these strongmen, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and others. It's the kind of thing that we know. When you hear Joe Biden, and Ed can recite these stunt speeches from memory.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel. Breaking news about Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race. Welcome to my channel for you guys across the globe, in the Caribbean and around the world. Welcome to American politics. It's very interesting, a lot of drama. If you guys are into politics, you guys need to tune in. They are just so much to listen to and information that we have never heard before. But let's listen. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends and family if they're into politics. Welcome again to TKS Hair Salon channel. Please like, subscribe, and share.
Of the announcement that the president wouldn't be seeking the nomination again. We don't know the details of those conversations, but we know they spoke. We also know the vice president, in one of her first political calls after all this, reached out to the head of the Congressional Black Caucus to ask for that group's support, which they have now given. And among others, Congressman Jim Clyburn, the senior lawmaker from South Carolina, the kingmaker of the Biden 2020 campaign, who remains such a close, trusted advisor and sort of spirit animal for the Biden movement, has now endorsed the vice president as well. So that should give you a sense of sort of where at least that wing of the party is headed, even while others may be reserving judgment.
And just to put a finer point on that, not only Jim Clyburn, but also the Congressional Black Caucus.
Yes. So that's, understandable. She's one of them. They have always said that anything that ever happened to the president, they'd be with her. But it is a signal to the rest of the party. Lest you forget, the most loyal elements of the Democratic Party are black voters, especially black women, and they expect a black woman to get the respect of the party and to be able to be the nominee.
It was a point that Joe Biden tried to make, perhaps not successfully, in his BET interview with Ed.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. There are other people who would be interested in listening to this American politics breaking news. So please share with your friends and family, like and subscribe as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your support.
Whether it's other federal district and appeals court judges, he has made a great effort to ensure that people like that, who represent different experiences, professional and otherwise, are put in positions of influence. To this point, I don't know if we have someone waiting to talk to us, but I think we have to dwell on. We should do that.
Yes,
we'll get to this other side.
Ed O'Keefe, thank you. And yes, Ed being deferential, as he knows, to the congressman who is waiting, Connecticut Representative Jim Hines. Representative Hines called for President Biden to drop out of the presidential race right after Mr. Biden's NATO press conference, and he is the ranking member of the House Intel Committee. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Let me get your reaction.
Well, I think it's not just me. I think it's an awful lot of my colleagues who are reacting with a combination of relief, elation, and gratitude. Relief that the split in the party, which was painful, as people sort of tried to figure out what to do. As you pointed out, I made my views known some time ago and pretty early. Elation, because I think there is a sense now that while we need to work out exactly what the ticket looks like, there's obviously a lot of momentum developing behind the vice president, but elation that I think we are now in the hunt to win this presidency. And then gratitude, of course, to Joe Biden. It was, I can speak for myself, it was enormously painful, given his accomplishments, given his decades of public service, to realize that he would probably lose to Donald Trump. So an immense amount of gratitude that Joe Biden chose to do what Nancy Pelosi did, which is to, at the very height of their powers, to step aside in favor of, probably a new generation. Not an easy thing to do when you are that powerful a person.
Congressman Hines, are you prepared to endorse Kamala Harris?
So I'm a big Harris fan, and I've been sort of arguing in the background as people said, well, what comes next? I've been arguing that, the vice presidency is a job that does not allow you to shine,
right? And when you are vice president, every word you utter has to be consistent with the beliefs of the president, or you're not doing your job. I'm a big believer that Harris, when she is sort of freed from that obligation, her numbers are likely to rise and rise dramatically. Now, I was out mowing my lawn 3 hours ago when I got the news, and so I haven't crafted a statement. I haven't sort of checked in with leadership. I do things in concert with my colleagues and that sort of thing. But I can tell you right now that I am a big Harris fan, and I think that Harris at the top of the ticket, you know, an African-American woman, a prosecutor up against a, you know, convicted felon, I could get pretty excited about that ticket.
Congressman, thank you. Margaret Brennan is here with me as well. Congressman Himes, I did read a note here from you. You said it's up to us to work as never before to defeat the dark authoritarian vision of Donald Trump. I wonder in this moment, given your role in the Intelligence Committee, what you think the message is to the world in terms of this upheaval within the American political system and the uncertainty as to the well-being of the commander-in-chief and his ability to continue making decisions in an effective way. Your Republican colleague, Mike Turner, on the Intelligence Committee has called for President Biden to step aside immediately, saying if he can't, you know, make it through the race, that he shouldn't be the Oval Office now.
Yeah, Margaret, I'm very disappointed by that line of thinking. And by the way, I resist the temptation to ask my Republican colleagues to look at their own candidate, convicted of 34 felony counts, adjudicated sexual abuser and rapist. You know, don't come pointing at us about the caliber of our candidate. What I will tell you, though, is that this notion that Joe Biden can't complete his term as president is bananas. And as you know, I was one of the early ones that were saying that he should step aside. The question in stepping aside is more about, can you beat Donald Trump, and can you then serve 4 more years? That's the president, that's the decision that the president made. So these calls from Republicans for the president to step aside, first of all, I understand why they're angry. They now realize what I realized, which is that there's a good chance that they lose. Earlier in the program, you read the statement by the Russians. The Russians, of course, had a very, very bad day because it was like Donald Trump and J.D. Vance was going to, you know, we're going to waltz into the Oval Office and stop support for Ukraine. But you know what? I would counsel my Republican friends, look at your own candidate before you start talking about Joe Biden.
Congressman Himes, stand by. I just want to go to Robert Costa because he has some new information. He just spoke with Donald Trump on the record. Robert?
I just spoke with former President Donald Trump on the phone. I asked the former president about his reaction to the news. He said that it's a shock to the country. It's a shock to the country, but he believes it's good for the country to see President Biden decide to step aside. He believes that President Biden was pressured out of the race. I asked him if he's willing to debate Vice President Harris. He said, I'm not sure she's going to be the Democratic nominee. He's waiting to see how the Democratic race emerges. He has not made any statement, he said, or conclusion about who the Democratic nominee will be, but he's thinking through the race. I asked him, will this change how you proceed with your own presidential campaign? He said, absolutely not. This is about policies. She carries, if she's the nominee or anyone else carries, the Biden record. He said to me in CBS News, he is running against the Biden administration, whether it's Vice President Harris or not. He expressed, in a sense, not sympathy for President Biden in any way, but he, as a political observer, believes that the Democrats took out one of their own with this pressure campaign. And he said that he, at this point, is just waiting to see what emerges in the Democratic Party. He said, I'm going to run against what he called the worst presidential administration in history. He believed, in his view, that President Biden's not up for the job. So he said, quote, to CBS News just now, that it's good for the country that he's getting out. But he said this is a total shock to the country to have a president forced out by his own party. And he kept insisting the race continues as is in his view.
It's interesting to hear from Donald Trump and that exclusive interview that you just had with him. I wonder, though, how worried the campaign is. Donald Trump ran against a woman, Hillary Clinton, in 2016. It was personal. He called her nasty. He called her a lot of other words. I wonder whether those same types of attacks would work in 2024. There will be a different dynamic running against a black woman.
It was evident on my conversation. It was a conversation, not an exclusive interview. It was a conversation I had with former President Trump on the phone. what's evident to me, I just spoke to Donald Trump Jr. within the last hour on text message and spoke by phone to former President Trump. What this country should be prepared for, based on what I heard from former President Trump, who I've known for many years as a reporter, have covered him extensively. What's on the horizon now is political war. It is going to be rougher than anything we've seen. His tone on the phone, his description of what's coming ahead on the horizon, even though he didn't pledge in any way to debate Vice President Harris, because he kept noting that she's not the nominee formally, so who should he debate? Why should he commit to debating her? When I pressed him on the issue in our conversation. But he kept going on, this is the worst administration. He said he went on in his position on immigration, that in his view they have destroyed the border, they need to be held accountable. I'm going to hold whoever runs against me accountable for what's going on at the border. And he went on and on that particular issue. And he said he believes on the issue of the economy and the immigration, he can win this election, whether it's Vice President Harris as the nominee or someone else. And he expressed a lot of confidence that his searing message and attacks on the Democratic record will be effective. And so this is a moment where Democrats are coming together, but Republicans clearly, based on my conversation with the former president, the Republican nominee, and his closest allies in the last couple hours, they are preparing to ramp up their attacks because as Democrats see this moment as one of togetherness, perhaps rallying around Vice President Harris, it should be noted that Republicans do see this publicly and especially behind the scenes as a moment of weakness for the Democratic Party, where there's a soft underbelly, politically speaking, for them to come in and attack the Democratic ticket as there is this moment of transition.
You know, I can remember the Bush-Kerry race and when John Kerry became the nominee. And I remember talking to a top official in the Bush campaign, and that official was saying to me, you know, only about the small slice of America really knows who John Kerry is. And as a Washington reporter, I said, what? He's a war hero. Everybody knows who John Kerry is. He's been in the Senate. He's been a prominent figure. And they said, no, and we're going to spend the next couple of months telling everybody what to believe about John Kerry, which became some of the most brutal attacks against a war hero, the Swift Boat veterans, just to recall that campaign of late. It is true, not many people, even though she is the Vice President of the United States, know a lot about Kamala Harris. And so will begin what is an effort, as in our campaigns are, they are political war, as you said, to paint her in a way from a campaign, the Donald Trump campaign, which is good at this type of political warfare.
And they get a 4-week head start.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to have a convention for 4 weeks. And if she faces a challenge, she can't go out there and explain herself, and the Trump campaign can.
And I want to bring in Congressman Jim Hines, since you've run a number of campaigns yourself. What about that? About what becomes this political war?
Well, of course, the election was always going to be hard to fought, but I can't disagree with the analysis more. That the idea that this is an underbelly of the Democratic Party, you know what, if you're Vladimir Putin and you rule as a totalitarian, if you're President Xi and you rule without the support of your people, if you're Donald Trump and in 2016 your own people, by the way, your own vice president, wanted to throw you overboard, I can see why this moment would be scary. But do not forget what this moment was. This moment was a moment in time when the most powerful man on the planet listened to his advisors, listened to members of Congress, listened to senators and the congressional leadership, and took a huge selfless step in the service of the country. So the framing of this thing as a weakness in the Democratic Party gets it 100% wrong. We had a debate, and the most powerful man on the planet listened and undertook a selfless act. Take that, Donald Trump. Let's see you try to pull something like that, you know, Vladimir Putin. So yeah, look, we've got, we don't have a lot of time, but we are going to think about young people who were completely unexcited by Joe Biden and Donald Trump. You know, African Americans, we've had a little bit of an issue with African Americans lately. You know, these are the things that the vice president, I think, is going to be in a natural position to address. Of course, the campaign matters. Of course, the campaigns are going to be tough. But I'm telling you, the Democrats in Congress right now are feeling, and this explains Donald Trump's confusion as well, like we can win this thing.
Congressman Hines, it's Margaret Cronin again. You know, for the public, Vice President Harris, she hasn't done a lot of interviews. They're few and far between when she does speak to reporters. She has the experience of being in the Oval Office alongside Joe Biden. You've been in meetings with her. I know she's been engaged on a lot of these key national security issues like Ukraine, certainly with Gaza.
and the crisis there. I wonder what you would explain to the public in terms of what you've seen about her ability to step into the role as commander-in-chief.
Well, remember, that's the definition of the vice president's role, that they are, and that's kind of the one thing they need to be. They need to be ready to assume the office of commander-in-chief in the case of a disaster. I can reflect on my own personal experience. For example, I was with the vice president at the Munich Security Conference. I saw her speech. I spoke with her there. I saw her in bilateral meetings with our allies. She is ready to go. Is Donald Trump and MAGA going to attack her? Of course they are. I think, as my friends in national security say, the attack area on Kamala Harris
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for tuning in. Live news about Biden dropping out of the presidential race, and Kamala Harris will be endorsed by, she is endorsed by Joe Biden. So thank you for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe.
The Intelligence Committee, a Democrat of Virginia, was among the earliest to call on him to go. Were you guys seeing something, or were you hearing something from national security and military officials possessing national security information that led you all? Concerns were those of you leading national security committees?
Yeah, the answer to your question is absolutely not, and I can't explain why it was, we were 3 of the 30 or so members of Congress and senators who called for it, but it had nothing to do with concern about the president's fitness. Record with the infrastructure amendments, with the fixing of drug prices and Medicare.
You did it.
To take, upon the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it was Joe Biden who pushed Europe to really become not just
The thing is strong.
NATO
And can you
operation. And while I've had my frustrations with the president for the speed with which we have supplied aid to Ukraine, we have made all of the difference. What the president was able to achieve, of course, in regional war in the Middle East. A lot of us worried about a regional war with Hezbollah going to war with Israel. Again, Joe Biden, with the help of the United States shipment, the investments that have been made in that pause.
But there was nothing or other intelligence agencies to the Pentagon that said he can't process this anymore, he's too old to do it?
First of all, let me be super clear. As the ranking intelligence committee, the CIA or an agency because it is essential that the intelligence community remain 100% out of politics. But no, the answer to your question is an unconditional, unqualified no. There was never a moment where I thought that the whatever metaphor you want to use, the hand on the wheel or the finger on the trigger, was not perfectly capable.
Okay. Connecticut Congressman Jim Himes, thank you for jumping in there. Himes, one of the first to call for President Biden to step aside after that NATO press conference where, as we mentioned, the president inverted the names of Zelensky and Putin. But I want to go now up to New York and our colleague John Dickerson, who has been standing by to York and on too frequent a basis these days. It's hard to believe, John, that it was just a week ago that we were talking about the attempted assassination of the Republican nominee, and now we are talking about a change at the very top of the Democratic ticket. I wonder what your thoughts are about where we are in this moment.
Well, the old expression, a week is a lifetime in politics. It feels like the debate on the 27th of June was back in the Middle Ages. A number of things that have changed within the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. But just focus for a moment on the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party was not, there was this push against the sitting president, but there was also a lot of pushing and ripping within the Democratic Party. There were a lot of harsh things being said by those who were responding to the president's debate performance. There were a lot of accusations among rank and file that those who were just sticking with Biden were essentially engaging the same kind of behavior as the Trump team. When you start making those kinds of accusations, it gets pretty ugly. So that, for the moment, is on pause. The movement to Harris is happening pretty fast. There are a lot of people who haven't spoken out because, as some previously have mentioned, the shop is open a little bit, which is to say when a politician needs your support, you can get things in return. There are also members of leadership who have to make sure that any wounded parties or any people who might have a future in the Democratic Party are tended to and listened to and heard out. So that might delay some people from endorsing Harris. But at bottom, the Democratic Party had a problem it could not fix, which was the challenges of Joe Biden, because time only moves in one direction. And they were proved in the difficulty of fixing it by his performance from the 27th of June onward. Now they have a whole set of other challenges which are not even known to us. As Nora was mentioning, the effort to define Kamala Harris considerably. How the thing, whereas the signature one blocking Joe Biden's successful candidacy was one they really fixed. So that's the way it feels. I have the right to completely rebut everything and fight changes again.
This moment, stay with us if you the White House because it'll change for us.
We're now hearing for the first time from a member of President Biden's family about had a brief conversation with Frank Biden, one of President Biden's two younger brothers, and here's what he told us. He said, "I'm incredibly proud of my brother. Selfishly, I will have him back to enjoy whatever time we have left. He is a genuine hero. Country over self. It sounds corny in our cynical political environment, but he and I are cynical things the same has done. My hope is that our party rallies around this heroic act." We asked him whether there's overall health and vitality a major, he says, in my humble opinion, so for me, the president's health was the major factor. They're a hero for making the decision to pass the torch to Kamala Harris.
So Nancy, sorry, can you clarify that the family is saying his health was or was not a factor?
He's saying that in his humble opinion, yes, the president's health and vitality played a considerable role in this decision. It's important to note, Frank Biden is not speaking for the family writ large. This was simply a conversation between CBS News and Frank Biden. Unclear how much input he had in this decision, but he says that he believes that his brother's health did play a role, and he says that the goal remains the same: defeat Donald Trump.
Well, that is notable because to date, the family, the White House, the establishment has rejected the premise that there was anything that was mental acuity or his health. And that all these accusations were baseless, that it was just a few like he had on the debate stage. So that is a change in message.
You were talking to John, and John, I'd be curious for your thoughts on this too. The debate felt like the Middle Ages, and that was only about
the 27th
of June. I would take things all the way back to the first week of June.
Welcome to my channels, guys. I am about to stop this live now, so I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you for sharing, thank you for liking, and thank you for subscribing. I see you next time. I will be on my next live, maybe in the next week. I hope you guys will be there to join me. Thanks again for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy this live. Thank you. Have a blessed day.